The empty chairs. When accountability meets calculated absence. There is a moment in every major investigation when the choice to be present or absent speaks louder than any words that might be uttered, when the decision to show up or stay away reveals more about priorities and loyalties than hours of testimony ever could. We witnessed such a moment today as the House Oversight Committee conducted a historic deposition with Les Wexner, the billionaire businessman whom FBI documents identify as a co-conspirator in the Jeffrey Epstein trafficking network, the man who provided Epstein with his vast fortune, who gave him power of attorney over hundreds of millions of dollars, who enabled the private island and the private plane and the infrastructure of abuse that destroyed countless young lives, sat under oath ready to answer questions about his relationship with one of history's most notorious sex traffickers. Democratic members of Congress filled their seats. Staff members prepared their questions. Survivors and advocates watched with desperate hope that finally someone at the center of this horror would be forced to explain themselves. But when the session began, every single Republican seat was empty. Not one Republican member of the House Oversight Committee bothered to attend the deposition of a man the FBI calls an Epstein co-conspirator. Not one showed up to question the billionaire who made Jeffrey Epstein wealthy and powerful. And this absence, this calculated decision to be anywhere else while Les Wexner testified under oath, tells us everything we need to know about who is actually committed to Epstein accountability and who is simply performing commitment when it is politically convenient. Les Wexner is not a minor figure in the Epstein story. He is, in the assessment of multiple members of Congress who did show up today, the essential figure without whom Jeffrey Epstein would never have become the predator he became. Born in 1937 in Dayton, Ohio, Wexner built a retail empire that includes Victoria's Secret and other major brands under the umbrella of what was once called LB Brands. He became extraordinarily wealthy, accumulating billions through savvy business decisions and aggressive expansion. And at some point in the 1980s, he developed a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein that would define both men's legacies and enable crimes that are still being uncovered decades later. The financial relationship between Wexner and Epstein was not merely close, it was total. Epstein had power of attorney over Wexner's assets. He controlled hundreds of millions of dollars. He made decisions about investments, about property purchases, about financial strategy. Multiple transactions totaling close to $1 billion moved from Wexner to Epstein over the years through direct transfers, stock grants, and other financial instruments. This extraordinary wealth is what allowed Epstein to purchase his private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands. It funded the acquisition and outfitting of private aircraft. It paid for properties where abuse occurred. As Congressman Robert Garcia stated bluntly today, there would be no Epstein Island without Les Wexner. There would be no Epstein plane. There would be no money to traffic women and girls. This is not speculation. This is documented financial fact. The FBI has designated Wexner as a co-conspirator. Yet remarkably, as Wexner himself confirmed under oath today, he has never been interviewed by the Department of Justice or the FBI about his relationship with Epstein. Never. The man identified by federal investigators as integral to Epstein's operation has apparently never been asked by federal law enforcement to explain himself under oath. This absence of investigation is itself evidence of how selectively accountability has been pursued in this case. Today's deposition lasted all day, with Wexner questioned extensively about his relationship with Epstein, about his knowledge of the trafficking, about his travels to Epstein properties, and about the financial arrangements. Congresswoman Yasmin Ansari of Ohio described Wexner as evasive and untruthful about the depth of his connection. When asked directly whether he had a personal relationship with Epstein beyond professional financial management, Wexner said no, despite 2 decades of close association. When asked about visits to Epstein's Island and New Mexico ranch, Wexner claimed he had been to each location for approximately 1 hour total, an assertion that strains credulity. Throughout the deposition, Wexner repeatedly claimed not to remember details about financial transactions, about meetings, about communications. He portrayed himself as someone who had been duped by Epstein. He denied any knowledge of Epstein's trafficking and abuse. He denied ever seeing young women or girls in suspicious circumstances. One of the most significant exchanges concerned the possibility of a romantic relationship between Wexner and Epstein, a theory that would explain the otherwise inexplicable financial arrangements. When asked about this directly, Wexner denied it. Questions about Donald Trump were also part of the deposition. Members asked whether he had ever been at social events where Trump, Epstein, and young women or girls were present together. Wexner's answers shifted. He acknowledged that there may have been Victoria's Secret fashion shows where he, Trump, and Epstein were all present. The complete absence of Republican members is what has generated the most outrage. These are members who have spent months claiming to support comprehensive Epstein accountability. They voted to authorize this deposition, and then, when the day came, not one of them showed up. The contrast with Republican behavior in other proceedings is stark. When depositions involve Bill Clinton or figures associated with Democrats, Republicans show up in force. But when questions about Trump's presence at social events with Epstein might be asked, suddenly Republicans have scheduling conflicts. Congresswoman Ansari noted with pointed irony that it will be interesting to see how many Republicans show up for the upcoming Clinton depositions given their complete absence from the Wexner proceeding.